A few years ago, I thought that I had achieved everything that I wanted to achieve in life. And yet, despite having all this stuff that I thought I wanted, instead of feeling content, it was quietly killing me. And I want to share that story with you today. I want to take you back in time today, to a time in my life where I thought I had achieved everything that I wanted from life. I had a great job. I had a wonderful family. I got to travel the world. I was working with these amazing brands and people and creatives, and I was doing all this stuff that I'd worked so hard for so long to do. And from the outside, my life looked pretty good. I remember some of my friends saying, "What have you got to be complaining about? Look what you do, look where you are." But they sensed that something wasn't right. And I knew that something wasn't right. Because despite the fact that I'd done all of these things, that I was doing all of these things, I didn't feel great. I didn't feel content. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel secure. I was tired. I was burnt out. I was misaligned, disengaged. I wasn't there, living my life. And I started to feel like that was leading me towards somewhere dangerous, somewhere I had been before in my life. Those warning bells were starting to ring. And at the end of the day, when I sat down with myself and I thought about where I really was, I knew I was starting to slide down a pretty dark slope. Despite the outward glitz, the interior was getting darker and darker. I knew something needed to change, but I just couldn't get out of my own way. I just couldn't change things. But something had to change. And the thing that finally woke me up wasn't a therapist. It wasn't a self-help book. It was a work of art. I was in Seoul for work and for family, and I'd had a really busy day, going around the city, meeting with some artists and meeting with some clients. And at the end of the day, I had some spare time, and there was an exhibition on that I wanted to go and see. So I hadn't stopped to think. I was constantly rushing, constantly moving ahead, not really thinking, pushing myself. But I wanted to see this exhibition, and I made the time to connect with my family and go to see this exhibition. And it was the work of the Korean artist Ufan. Now, if you're familiar with his work, it's very simple, very minimalist in the way that it's presented, but it carries a deep meaning. And it was that meaning that really spoke to me on that day. The work in question that changed me so much is called Relatum, the Kiss. And I can still remember walking into the room where it was with my son. And we were looking at it. And I asked him about it. I asked, "Do you think those rocks are kissing?" And he was only 5 and he laughed. And he says, "What are you talking about? They're just rocks." And we spoke a bit more about the artwork, what it could mean. And it kept coming back to the fact that they were just rocks. And he eventually left the room, and I was looking at the work a bit more, just me, in the space. And I realized in that moment something very powerful. The work itself was about a relationship of objects, a group of objects brought together into a relationship. There's the rocks, the chain, the light, the room itself, and one extra very important ingredient, the viewer. In that moment, standing in that room, I was part of that relationship. But I realized that when I left the room and someone else came in, a new relationship would be formed. The relationship between them and the object. And throughout the course of the day, as lots of people went through the space, lots of relationships would be created. But in all of those relationships, the rocks, the chain, the light, they would always remain the same. They would remain consistent even when the relationship changed. And it was in that realization that I saw an analogy for my life. I saw a potential way to turn around how I was living and bring myself back from that dark space. Because when you stop to consider it, in our lives, we're in lots of relationships. There's the relationship with our family, with our friends, with our parents, with our children, with our neighbors, with our co-workers, with the person at the coffee shop, with the people online. Lots and lots of relationships. And yet I realized that in every single one of those relationships, I wasn't myself. I wasn't like that rock or those chains. I wasn't being consistent in every single relationship. I allowed myself to be changed by the relationship that I'd stepped into. I'd given myself up, given control of myself up to the other elements of that relationship to control me. Because I was never present, I was never there, I was always stuck in my own head. So I was always just drifting, going with the flow and allowing myself to be pulled and manipulated and changed by those relationships. And that was robbing me of something really important. That was robbing me of myself. Because I was tired of living all of these lives, maintaining all of these different relationships, because it was hard, because I wasn't me in every single one, so it was difficult to always remember what I had to do. I had to perform all the time. And I let that happen time and time again till it became habit, till it just became the way I lived my life, completely disconnected. Now, obviously, in relationships, there is a bit of give and take. You can't be completely locked off and always be yourself. But you can always be true to yourself. You can always maintain an uncompromising lock on who you are. And maintain that sense of self and that sense of direction about where you want to go. What do you want to achieve? And some people may think that this kind of logic is selfish. But sometimes you have to think that way and remove the negative connotations that the word selfish has to it. You need to maintain yourself. You need to be true to yourself. You need to design your life because it is your life. So when I reflected on all the things that I'd achieved, I realized that I was perhaps achieving some of those things because other people in those relationships wanted me to achieve them. I thought that if I did them, then those people would approve of me. They would be happy. They would give me a pat on the back. That was what I was supposed to do in that role, in that performance that I was living out. I'm being this sort of a person, so I've got to achieve these sort of things. But when I asked myself what I really wanted, it was very different. So I began to listen to myself, to be true to who I am, to become more like that rock and those chains, and be as consistent as I possibly could be in each and every relationship in my life. And sure, some of them lessened as a result of that, but that's fine. Perhaps it was time to move on. Perhaps it was time to redesign the relationships that I'm in my life. And that wasn't easy. But that change has helped to move me forward, helped me to take positive steps towards creating the life that I want to live. And now, several years later, I feel much more content with how I'm living my life. And sure, it's a struggle, because I lived so long one way, giving myself up, that still today I catch myself doing that over and over again. But I still have to remind myself. I look at the picture of that artwork. I remind myself to be more like that rock, to be more like those chains, to be consistent, to be me. And I've started to put in place techniques to help me to maintain that. And the first of these is to be wary of over-optimization. I know I spoke about this in the last video, but I was continually over-optimizing my life without becoming aligned first. I was so good at it that I was running out so far ahead of where I actually was. I lost myself. And that's why I believe so strongly that you don't need new habits. You don't necessarily need new systems. You need to become aligned. You need to become connected to who you are, to listen to yourself. Because that feeling inside, that sense, that whatever you want to call it, your gut, your instinct, that speaks the truth. And you know when you're not listening to it. And going forward in a world that's becoming more and more run by AI and machines, that instinct, that internal feeling is your point of difference, is your advantage. It's what makes you human. It's what makes life meaningful, listening to that, connecting with it. Because when you do that, when you listen to what's inside, you create meaningful experiences in the world. You connect to things. You're able to see things again. You're able to live the life that you want to live, and you become far more aware of the world around you. And when you are aware of the world around you, you're able to remain truer to yourself. It's harder for those other elements to start to control you again because you can see them when they're coming. And that's a skill I continually want to develop every single day. I want to see the world. I want to be aware. I want to live my life. It's not about being a perfect person. It's not about being a finished person. It's about being yourself. I know a lot of people watching this video know exactly the feeling I'm describing. That feeling of racing forward, of doing things to appease other people rather than appeasing yourself. And you hear that voice inside you saying, "Is this it?" And if you can hear that voice, listen to it, acknowledge it. Because when life gets busy, it's easy to ignore that voice. Get back into the habits that got us to where we are today, that got us into this situation. Continue to be busy, continue to push forward, continue to optimize. But that voice will always be there because that voice is you, it's who you are. Listen to it. Because if you don't, you'll wake up one day realizing that you've spent years building a life that's not your own. And that's why I say an artwork saved my life. Not because it gave me answers, because it helped me to ask better questions. Because when I reflect on that artwork, I stopped asking, who should I become? And started asking, who am I when no one needs anything from me? Who am I? And that question changed everything. Because most people don't need a new life. They just need the courage to redesign the life that they have. I hope that through hearing my story, you feel a little bit less alone today. If you're sitting out there feeling that this is me, I'm not living my life and I want to live my life. And I know it's scary to change, but the alternative is also just as scary. I don't want you to wake up in 5 years or 10 years with so much regret. I want you to live your life. I want you to redesign your life to create the life that you want to live. And if you want to hear more about my journey, hear more about the ways that I've gone about doing this, subscribe to my channel and follow along with these videos. I'm trying to share what I've gone through in the hope that it can help you create what you want. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.